So what has been done is that has been it is being circulated, I guess, to lower the requirements, to make it easier for the schools to be able to access that.
Modify the requirements,
That's
if you will.
exactly right.
Okay.
And so what it's done is it's provided an opportunity for about 79 schools to be able to be eligible to access the money. It's probably more repair needed than what's available in the fund, but there will be a selection criteria as part of the process. So that is already in a process stage. It's already been started, and it's just a matter of time before it meets all the requirements in order to be able to recirculate that. It's a question of changing the requirements, and then we have to utilize state law in order to be able to do that.
That's pre-Secretary Ana Caballero. Is there any other recommendations that you would make that would help accelerate that?
Well, the instructions that I gave was that it be accelerated.
I gotcha. Okay.
The quickest that we can get it done. And so that once it came to my attention that we had resources, that we have schools that need those resources, to get that out the door as quickly as possible.
Okay. All right.
So that's what we're doing in terms of the seismic retrofit. In regards to the agency, your question was what's my management style, and very very simply, I have very very high expectations for myself as well as the staff. The way that I organize. That I've organized the departments is I meet on a regular basis with everyone individually, and then I meet with the all of the department directors as a group once a month. But I meet with everyone twice a month individually to go over what my expectations are and what the different projects that they have that they're working on that I need to know about. In that process, I've been very clear about I don't like surprises. I want to see things. I want to hear about things coming down the pike. I want a heads up on anything that shows up that I would likely be concerned about. I want to be kept informed. I'm doing a tour of every single facility that I can do a tour of because I want to see how we do things, and I want to understand the conditions under which we have employees working. I've participated in a couple of those. I went through CalSTRS to see how they do their financial management, as well as their investments, and I've talked with them about their how they do their investments and what kind of issues are of concern to the governor in regards to hiring, the use of vehicles, all the things that have been part of his executive order that do not pertain to them. I expect them to take them seriously because they're perceived as part of the state infrastructure, like it or not. And more importantly, I like to work in partnership with people. We're a team. I like to build a team. We build it with trust. And so a large part of my discussions have to do with what my expectations are, what some of the things that I'm concerned about, their operations, and looking at ways for us to be able to set up stakeholder groups, to bring in outside resources, to look at ways to be able to do efficiencies and reorganize the way that we do business.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question, and I think all the questions have sort of circled around this, but the governor, of course, released his May revision on Monday, in which he called for the elimination and consolidation of various state functions, and many of the proposals fall within your agency, including the consolidation of the State Personnel Board and the DPA, the elimination of the Fair Employment and Housing Commission. And I think that there is a pretty common sentiment here that we need to eliminate as much duplication as possible to gain efficiencies. But as we think about the next month and getting an on-time budget, what is your suggestion and what are you planning to do to analyze whether or not the eliminations in whole or in part balance the efficiency need with maintaining important consumer protection functions? And is a month enough time to be able to do that?
Really good question. I think well, part of the process that I have already implemented in regards to the elimination of departments or commissions within the agency is to, I held a stakeholder phone conference on Monday right after the governor announced the budget. And we are going to be setting up a stakeholder group for every single one of those eliminations. I invited them to be part of the process. And what we're doing internally is creating a list of what those particular commissions or departments do, very specifically. What are their charges? And we're going to meet with the stakeholders to try to figure out, is there some place within the state organization that does this work? Where we can add onto their plate in order to eliminate duplication of processes, or is it totally impossible to do it? I think that there are some efficiencies that we can achieve, and so we're working on encouraging and bringing in stakeholders so that it's not just a process that we're doing without any transparency. It's a very collaborative process. We're going to work together. And so we'll have that answer for you within the next 30 days. We're working at a very quick pace.
And it's not to put undue pressure, but really if we're going to consider the recommendations in the course of the more intensive budget deliberations, we probably need the thoughts, recommendations of those stakeholders within 2 weeks.
Tough.
May not happen. Well, no.
See,
that's honest.
Let me explain to you part of the challenge. I think is these decisions are. It's a little bit like a death. Terrible analogy, but really is. The first initial reaction is no, it can't happen. It can't be true. And then people start thinking of but what about all these other ideas what about all of these things that this group does? And then they start saying, well, maybe if we saved this part, we can then give up a little bit. And so it's a process that I think we're going to have to go through. And a month is pretty aggressive because there are three. There's the commission and a couple of departments that are slated. And the question becomes: is there a way to get this work done? Because there are important protections that are involved here. That they were created because people thought it was really important to have a protection of some kind out there.
So just colleagues, to put on our budget/policy hats here, sitting as members of the Rules Committee, I think we're going to have to think through as a legislature what piece of the governor's proposal, maybe a lot of it can and should be done quickly over the next 30 days, and what may need some more analysis to ensure that we're doing whatever consolidations or eliminations we're doing in the best way. Just a thought. Okay. Yes, Senator Alquist.
It's really not another question. It was just sort of the end of the last question, and that was back on the state architect. What is your commitment to what kind of timeline on reorganizing? I'm not sure that I heard that piece of it.
I think the difficulty is that short term we can do the hiring we need to do, and actually let me take a step back. We have the ability to. We absolutely need to hire more people in that office. The list has one person left on the list, which means we've got to go back out. We've got to do a recruitment. We've got to have people take the test, and then we've got to do interviews. I'm told that that's somewhere between 4 to 6 months. So even in a best-case scenario, we don't get people boots on the ground, even if the governor approves the hiring freeze for 6 months. I'd like to take a much more deliberative approach and figure out if we really need to bring back some of the authority to the state architect that the office does not have right now. Because if we do, then we may be able to bring in the other pieces that are in other departments or are working on in other commissions, and that's a longer discussion. So if I could, I'd like to be able to have a conversation with you within the next 2 or 3 months about where we think we're going to go on this, and it may be that we're just straight out going to hire, and we're not going to look at a reorganization yet.
Okay.
But
So what I would like to request in closing is that, given that the state architect's office had contracted out with building inspectors who had felony convictions and who were not qualified, I would hope, and I know you need a little time to think about this, and this is very complex in addition to everything else, that in writing you'll get back to our committee as to the timeline.
Please.
If you could do that, please.
Yes, Senator, and actually it wasn't the contracts, it was the schools that contracted for those individuals, and that's part of the challenge, I think, and that's what we want to fix. So yes, absolutely, we will be in contact.
Good. That's good request. Good. That'll be good follow-up. Let's hear from witnesses in support of the nominee, please. It's a long line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senators. I'm Bob Raymer, staff engineer with the California Building Industry Association, and we strongly support this confirmation. Indeed, Secretary Caballero does have a huge portfolio of interest to the building industry, State Allocations Board, Division of the State Architect, Contractor State License Board, Building Standards Commission. There's just a ton of different stuff under her agency that we work with every day. Specifically, we've recently had a situation where the Division of the State Architect is now moving forward with the certification of our state regulations for accessibility with the U.S. Department of Justice. This is the most significant action I've seen taken on this issue in the past 10 years, and it's all happened in the last 6 weeks. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. I mean, to echo Mr. Raymer's issues with regards to the infrastructure importance of this appointment, we believe that Ms. Caballero brings forth the insight, the great work ethic. She was a great assemblywoman, had a focus on infrastructure, and right now that is needed with the Division of State Architect. They sure have a lot of problems, but she's the right person at the right time for the job. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Roberson.
Mr. Chair, members, Stephanie Roberson on behalf of the California Nurses Association, echoing comments of my colleague. We do come with great pleasure to support your confirmation. We had a collaborative working relationship with you when you were in the assembly, and it was very fruitful. We work in a collaborative fashion, and she was really wonderful to work with. We look forward to working with her in the future. Of course, we are primarily concerned with the BRN, the Board of Registered Nursing, where it's a very robust board. There are a lot of issues at stake, and we want to work with you. Our doors are open as well as yours, and we want to move forward. So thank you. We support.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Craig, and I'm a Salinas City Councilwoman. We're up here today on behalf of the city to recommend and support the appointment of Ana Caballero to the Department of Consumer Services. We realize it's a mixed bag, but we know that she has represented the city and our region as our Assemblywoman well, and we are looking forward to her in her appointment in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman, for coming to Sacramento. We appreciate it.
Patrick Hay on behalf of the California State Council of Labor is in strong support of Ms. Caballero. As Mr. De Leon brought up with some of the seismic safety this state faces, as well as some of the other infrastructure projects that we have in front of us, we believe that Ms. Caballero will bring some of the necessary refinements and efficiencies to government, as she showed while she was in the state legislature, and we're hopeful to see some of that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice Norman on behalf of the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees. We won't belabor the point. We think she's a fine candidate. We think that her appointment is the right time, the right person. We've had a very collaborative relationship working with her. Her department and agency will touch various aspects of our union as we represent nurses and pharmacists as well. And we just look forward to continuing to have a fruitful relationship with her. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition to the nominee? If not, let me just say that I'm very pleased to support your nomination.
Thank you.
And you know, it's always a little buzz whenever an ex-elected official is appointed to a position, and sometimes, you know, that's looked at in a negative way. But I like the fact that somebody with your breadth of experience is willing to continue her public service with this sort of responsibility. It's a huge agency, as Senator De Leon said, and I think the fact that you understand how the system works, you understand the legislative and executive branches of government is going to serve this state and this agency very well. And so I'd gladly take a motion. Moved by Senator Alquist. Let's call the roll on the nomination.
Senators Alquist. Alquist, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Harmon. Harmon, aye. Steinberg.
Aye.
Steinberg, aye.
That's 5-0, and that's about as good as it gets.
Good sign.
All right?
It's a good sign.
And the nomination will go to the floor, and we'll take it up forthwith. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much,
Senators.
Madam Secretary.
Appreciate it very much.
It's a great title, by the way, Madam Secretary, isn't it? All right, members, we have file items 1 and then 3 through 12. I think we want to strike 4 and 7 for now. All right, are there any other issues from any of the members? Okay, if not, let's take a motion then on file items 1, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Moved by Senator Fuller. Please call the roll.
Senators Alquist. Aye. Alquist, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Harmon. Harmon, aye. Steinberg.
Aye.
Steinberg, aye.
Those measures pass. Very, very good. We don't have any walk-ons? No. We do not. So now we will move to an executive session.